Sarah Lynn, I might need you to repay the favor. Okay. Be ready. Shana Tova. God tells Avraham, Kach nach et bincha, yechidcha, asher chavta et Yitzchak, v'lech lecha el eretz hamoria, v'halehu sham leola, al achat harim, asher omer elecha. Take your favored one, take your son, your favored one, Isaac, whom you love. Go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the heights I will point out to you. The story of Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, is central to the Torah reading today, as well as the main focus of the Zichronot section during the Musaf Amidah. Akedat Yitzchak challenges us with questions of faith, of God's desire, of sacrifice. Akedat Yitzchak is chock full of questions. Did Abraham know it was a test? Did Isaac? Why didn't Abraham protest God's command when he protested God after being told of the impending destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? Where was Sarah? How did she? How would she? How could she handle the potential death of her beloved son at the hands of her husband? The story of the Akedah ends, and Parshat Chayei Sarah begins with Sarah's death. Commenting on this, Rashi makes the connection clear through Smichut Parshiot, connecting what came before with what directly follows, quoting from the beginning of the Parsha saying, "And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and weep for her." The telling of Sarah's death directly follows the binding of Isaac, because when Sarah is told about the binding of Isaac, where her son is prepared for slaughter and was nearly not slaughtered, her soul flew from her and she died. Told differently in Midrash Leviticus Rabbah, Isaac survives the ordeal, makes it home, and shares the account directly with his mom. Isaac returned to his mother, and she said to him, "Where have you been, my son?" Said he to her, "My father took me and led me up mountains and down hills." "Alas," she said, "for the son of a helpless woman, had it not been for the angel, you would have now been slain." Yes, he said to her. Thereupon she uttered 6 cries, corresponding to the 6 blasts of the shofar. She had scarcely finished speaking when she died. Hence, it is written at the beginning of Chayei Sarah, and Avraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. This is told in contrast to another Midrashic account, where upon hearing what occurred, Sarah wailed 3 times, corresponding to the 3 wailing blasts of the shofar, before her soul burst forth and she died. When Sarah hears of the potential death of Isaac, she utters 6 cries, corresponding to the cries of the shofar, her 3 wails to the wailing of the shofar, and her soul flies from her. Sarah did not hear God calling out, "Avraham, Avraham." She did not hear Avraham answering, "Hineni." She did not hear God say, "Al tishlach yadcha el hanar, va'al ta'as lo me'uma." Do not raise your hand against the boy or do anything to him. In reading the story of the Akedah today, in hearing Sarah's cries echoing in the sounding of the shofar, all I think about is the video taken on August 29th of Rachel Goldberg, Poland, just days before receiving the terrible news of her son's death, screaming out into Gaza to her beloved, "Hirsch, Hirsch." And then quietly, in a still small voice, she whispered, "It's Mama." In the past month, we saw one of today's matriarchs living as the biblical Sarah. Sarah cried out, she wailed, her soul flew from her. Rachel cried, she wailed, and for a moment her soul flew from her, but she gathered herself in her grief with such determination to ensure no other hostage family goes through what she did. Tragically, we know the names Ori Danino, Carmel Gott, Hirsch Polin, Alexander Labanov, Eden Yerushalmi, and Almag Sarusi of blessed memory. On September 25th, their families published a letter in Time magazine in which they say, "Why are the names of the hostages who remain in captivity not on the nightly news in countries around the world? Where is the global outcry for their release? Where is the condemnation from the religious and spiritual leaders of the 5 faiths of hostages still being held? It's time to use your power. You have to do better. We know some of the names. The little red-headed babies, Kafir and Ariel Bibas, Noah Argamani, who was heroically rescued, and Hirsch Goldberg Poland, Zichrono Livracha. But why is it that the shofar call for those still being held hostage is not being heard by everyone, everywhere, every day? Why is the world not calling out? Why are we not calling out? I want us, our people, our community, the world to be in constant outcry. Where are the Abrahams calling out as Sodom and Amorah are about to be destroyed? Who is blowing the sounds of the shofar, the sounds of Rachel and Sarah Imanu's cries? In the Identity Crisis podcast this week, with Dr. Yehuda Kurtzer of Shalom Hartman, Yair Furstenberg, a professor of Talmud at Hebrew U, was interviewed about how Jewish tradition can help confront death's senselessness. In this episode, he says, "Every year when I come to Rosh Hashanah, I don't think of my prayer as something that is going to change the world, or act in this world, or in another world, but more of a deep way to address our world, our experiences, and somehow to organize it." Today, on this Rosh Hashanah, I respectfully disagree with Professor Furstenberg. On this Rosh Hashanah, the sounding of the shofar must call out to us as God called out to Avraham, Avraham, Avraham. The shofar this year is an opportunity for us to re-engage. I've been beaten down by this war, but hearing the cry of the shofar, hearing the cry of Rachel deserves an answer. Last Friday, I went to find a list of all the current hostages. Unsurprisingly, it was quite difficult. The only place I could find the list was directly from the Bring Them Home website. As I looked at all 91 photos and names that accompanied them, I was and I remain embarrassed that I do not know all of the names. I do not know all of the faces. I've seen each poster at Ben Gurion. I've seen each poster around Israel. And yet, after 363 days, I do not know all of them. We do not know all of them. After 363 days, their names deserve to be known. Tamir Adar, Muhammad al-Atarash, Hisham al-Sayed, Hamza al-Zaidini, Yosef al-Zaidini, Liri Albag, Eden Alexander, Matan Angrest, Karina Aryev, Aviv Aztali. Their names must be known. The Torah spends so much time listing names. God created the world by naming light day and darkness night. In Genesis 3, Adam names all the animals, and in doing so, God realizes he needs his Ezer Kenegdo. God changed Avram to Avraham, Sarai to Sarah, and after wrestling with an angel, Yaakov to Yisrael. When we call out to God in prayer, we invoke their names: Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. The book of Exodus, Sefer Shemot, is the book of names. In our tradition, names matter. These 91 names matter. Their faces matter. Their stories matter. Sachar Baruch, Uriel Baruch, Ochad Ben Ami, Agam Berger, Gali Berman, Ziv Berman, Ariel Bibas, Kfir Bibas, Shiri Bibas, and Yarden Bibas matter. In commenting on the first verse in Sefer Shemot, Rashi says, although Scripture has already enumerated them by name while they were living, when they went down into Egypt, it again enumerates them to tell us that their death, showing how dear they were to God, they're compared to the stars which also God brings out and brings in by number and name when they cease to shine. We do not know the status of all the hostages, but we cannot let the stars of Elkanah Bohbot, Ram Bavlasky, Itai Chen, Sagi Dekel Chen, Ilya Cohn, Nimrod Cohn, Amram Cooper, Ariel Cunino, David Cunino, and Eviatar David stop shining. In the Unatana Tokef, we said to God, you open the book of memories, it is read, and everyone's name is signed there. And we continue saying, all who have come into this world pass before you like sheep. Today, as the great shofar is sounded, as the book of memories is read, we can emulate God and count before us Yitzchak Elgarat, Ronan Engel, Danella Gilboa, Guy Gilboa Dalal, Manny Godard, Hadar Golden, Romy Gonen, Ron Givli, Gad Chagai, and Judy Weinstein Chagai. We know the stories of survivors and of heroes from the 7th of October. I was privileged to hear firsthand from some of them. Rabbi Daniel Gordis recently wrote, I heard this week there have been 80 books published in Israel about 10-7. There are fewer in English, but some of those that are out are outstanding. Last week, Amir T-Bone's book, The Gates of Gaza, was released and was on my doorstep immediately. Amir T-Bone's story is incredible and always brings me to tears. The line that instantly chokes me up is Amir's retelling of his father making it to their safe room to save them and saying to his children, Saba Higia, Grandpa has arrived. When can Tal Chaimi, Inbar Chaimin, Maxim Kirkin, Eitan Horn, Iyar Horn, Tzachi Idan, Guy Iloz, Bipin Yoshi, Ofer Calderon, and Segaev Kalfon say, Tzacha Higia, the army has arrived. All of these stories are important. I do not want to discredit them. Baruch Hashem, there are heroes and survivors that are able to tell their stories. But outside of a few hostage families, so few stories of those currently being held hostage have been told. It deeply pains me to read these names and not know their stories. In reading the names, I'm reminded of a promise I have made and not upheld to Lishai Lavi Miran. Lishai is the wife of Omri Miran, who's been held captive, and I had the honor to meet her in Hostage Square in April. When I met Lishai, I promised I would do anything I could. I would share Omri's story. I would always have Omri on top of my mind. When I look through the names and faces, I remember this promise and my failure to keep it. Lishai begadati, I've betrayed. Tafalti sheker, I've lied. Pashati, I was negligent. Sararti, I caused you grief. Who has broken promises to Ofar Kidra, Bar Abraham Cooperstein, Eitan Levy, Shai Levinson, Naama Levy, Or Levy, Oded Leifschutz, Shlomo Mansar, Eliyahu Margalit, and Avira Magnitsto? How are we supposed to authentically engage in the rituals and self-introspection of this season, knowing these stolen souls are languishing? How do we say who will live and who will die? Who by sword or who by fire? Who by hunger and who by thirst? Knowing some of these people have died by hunger, some have died by thirst. How do we engage with God when the sounding of the shofar, our wailing, is not being heard by those underground in Gaza? As we cry out as Jews around the world, sound the great shofar, may the Tikiya Gedolah be heard by Keith Samuel Siegel, Doron Steinbrecher, Itai Svirsky, Alexander Sasha Truvanov, Ilan Weiss, Omer Wenkert, Yair Yaakov, Ochad Yachalomi, Arbel Yehud, Ari Zlamanowitz, and Matan Zengukar. Last year on Rosh Hashanah, I shared an inspiring insight from Ted Lasso and encouraged our community to embrace curiosity. I've been touched to hear Leonard echo this sentiment throughout the year, often beginning our conversations with, in the spirit of staying curious. As we welcomed 5784, I could have never imagined the world events that would unfold, shaping our experiences and our perspectives. When I spoke of curiosity, I envisioned it as a tool for questioning and understanding. Yet as we enter 5785, we've been compelled to confront a more profound kind of curiosity, one that grapples with choices beyond our control, especially when those choices clash with our values and our desires. How do we respond to decisions that affect our families, our community, and our nation, particularly when those choices lead to suffering? In this context, we cannot forget Omri Miran, Yehoshua Loito Molel, Eitan Abraham Moore, Gadi Moshe Moses, Omer Natura, Tamir Nimrodi, Yosef Chaim Ochana, Alon Ochel, Amniatan Or, and Dror Ar were caught in a cycle of uncertainty. When will they have the opportunity to make simple choices for themselves again? As 5785 begins, may we answer the call of the shofar that reminds us of Sarah's deep grief, the cry of Rachel and the call of the 6 families. On this Rosh Hashanah, when we remember year after year a messenger of God calling out, Avraham, Avraham, and Avraham stepping forward and hearing God's call, Hineni. I hope I can do better. I hope we can do better. I hope a messenger can call out soon to God and yell, Adonai, Adonai, al tishlach yadcha. Do not raise your hand against these innocents. I hope we as a community and a society can do what tragically could not be done for the husbands, siblings, and children of the 6 families and all those murdered in Gaza. I do not have the power to bring them home. Today I'm doing what is in my power, bringing their names to our hearts and our minds. I hope in 5785 we can be messengers of God and call out and shout out. I hope we can step forward and answer Hineni and bring them from darkness to light. May we bring Danielle Oz, Daniel Peretz, Lior Rudef, Yonatan Samariano, Eli Shararbi, Yossi Shararbi, Oren Shol, Omer Shem Tov, Tal Shoham, and Eden Shiviti from darkness to light. I want to close with the poem Ve'ela Shmot. These are the names by Yael Lifshitz. And these are the names of the children of Israel, 80 and another 6 nights. These are the names of those covered by darkness. These are the names of those descending into the abyss of grief, whose lives were snatched and cut off. These are the names of the children of Israel whose cry rises from the depth of the tunnels of darkness, and there is no angel and no seraph to save them, but even a single expression of deliverance. Yet there is hope, whose wings tremble with the power to break through the straits, to call them out by their names and draw them out, to bring them back to the land of the living. Today, as we bring in 5785, we have called each of them by their names. May they quickly be brought back to the land of the living. Shana Tova Umetuka, may you be inscribed in the book of life.